Initially, I chose a genre, electronic nature. This is a subgenre of an ambient new age style, primarily used from sounds in nature, used in composition alongside of electronic treatment and other sounds. Biomusic is a form of non-human music, so the incorporation of birdsong in music is one of the most widely studied forms of biomusic. So artists such as Deep Forest, Maggie Rogers and Thievery Corporation utilise electronic nature characteristics. A great example is Maggie Rogers' Alaska. This is a masterclass with Pharrell Williams and Maggie Rogers. Interestingly enough, Maggie Rogers says that she thinks that genres exist just to sell music. Looking at a critical analysis of the production style using terminology from the General Methods for Subjective Assessments of Sound Quality ITU standards, we can see that spatial impression is mostly wet with an emphasis on reverb, a large room sound, that being outside, and very deep sounds. Stereo impression is wide. There's loose placement of elements within the stereo field. Transparency is both clear and muddy depending on the track, as sounds in nature can be both quite sharp and specific. For example, a crack of a stick or crunching of a leaf, or more of the drone of a thunder or a storm brewing or moving water. Sound balance is medium compression to keep dynamic colour. Mostly the timbre is using warm sounds. There's absence of noise and distortions because these are utilising natural sounds. And then the main impression, sounds are earthy with quite a fluid rhythmical melodic ideas. Reverb and delay used in abundance. A sense of momentum is used throughout a lot of this genre with echoes and delays. Critically listening to this style of genre, the frequency response is a full range from the low end from all the way down to 20 Hz up to 150 Hz and the top end between 11 and 16,000 Hz. Mid-range around 600 Hz. The vocal presence is at the top end. Dynamic range, I would love to learn more about this in Ableton to find specific information on this. However, this is the dynamic range from the spectrum in Ableton. The tone is quite warm and imaging is wide. The separation instrumentation is blended with sounds merging into one another, so it's a very fluid sound. Chris DeVille of Stereo Gum called it a gorgeous thing to behold, thumping acoustic guitar figures, a crisply minimal disco drum beat, eerie background noise, thunderous bass and twinkling pianos, all topped off by Grimm's reminiscent high-end vocal work. After reading the sonic vernacular, I couldn't help but think that music can be described in two different ways. One is technically, like I've just done so, and the other is descriptively. The technical way to describe music is very much around hertz and numbers that we use to be able to define whether it's decibels or whether it's frequency range or a specific frequency, whereas descriptive words can be used. I will paste a few below which I have used as an example of how and what descriptive words you can use to describe music. For example, is it aggressive, airy, ambient, etc. After reading The Art of Recording and Aesthetics of Perfection, I absolutely agree that audio engineering is an art in itself and that there is such thing as perfectionism in production. An example of this is a producer I worked with, James England from Crash Symphony Studios in Sydney. He has this tendency in a lot of his work. It is very polished and clean, and I would certainly call his style very perfectionist in terms of the standard in which he edits and creates sound. Even in genres like punk and rock, where you generally think about getting distortion or distorted sounds, the production is not as what you would expect, a bit rough around the edges. Rather, it's much more clean. And so I guess it is possible in production to be too perfect and detracting from perhaps the magic originality captured in the first recording. After exploring my genre a little bit more, I shifted into what I would typically associate with sounds in nature and tried to emulate these sounds by using body percussion and sounds with my mouth. This audio clip was first captured on the 27th of September. The voice speech of a typical adult male is fundamentally between the frequencies of 85 to 180 hertz, and that of a typical female between 165 and 255 hertz. At this stage of the project, I have made a rough composition with the sounds themselves that are all untreated except for the top hi-hat line, that sound, where I have EQ'd it to focus on a higher frequency above 8,000 hertz. To further explore my genre, I've put a playlist together of different vocal percussion groups. This can be reached at this link here. Vocal percussion is the art of creating sounds with one's mouth that approximate or imitate or otherwise serve the same purpose as a percussion instrument, whether that be a group of singers, an instrumental ensemble, or solo. So my genre is still sounds in nature. I am nature, so I have moved away from what people would typically associate with natural electronic. But I've tried to emulate natural sounds by using body percussion and sounds with my mouth. Thank you.
Are you listening? If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Frequency and vibration.
Vibration.